Someone who has always gone out of his way to pound the table, whether it's Lamar Jackson's MVP candidacy, whether it's the way that he's viewed throughout sports media, whether it's the way that he's portrayed, whatever it is, Robert Griffin III, his former backup quarterback, always seems to be there backing up his guy. He backed him up as a player and still backing him up as a friend. And he tweeted out earlier, stop using Derrick Henry to discredit Lamar Jackson. Henry got hit in the backfield on 50% of his runs last year. This year, it's down to 39%. He has more than doubled his yards before contact, and it's because of Lamar's influence. Watch the dang tape, and you will see how often linebackers, safeties, and defensive linemen are out of their gap and often chasing Lamar on under center runs, shotgun runs, and zone read looks. This has been the easiest 1,921 yards Derrick Henry has ever run for in his career. Lamar and Derrick are the match made in heaven I predicted they would be in the offseason. They complement each other and are great teammates. Lamar has the second highest passer rating in NFL history with 41 passing touchdowns and won the AFC North. He should be the NFL MVP. That from RG3. Not only a glowing endorsement of Lamar, but also kind of taking direct aim at some of those in the national spotlight who have tried to take away from Lamar's MVP candidacy because of Derrick Henry's presence. Now, the King was having a little bit of fun in the X Spear postgame. Obviously doesn't do a whole lot of tweeting and typically keeps it pretty businesslike when he's behind the mic. He quote tweets his fellow Heisman brother, RG3, in that tweet that I just read aloud to you, and said, first of all, bruh, spell my name right, LOL. RG3 went with D-E-R-E-K. Of course, it's D-E-R-R-I-C-K. And he added on that we scream in MV3 over this way, which he's done early and often since it became a thing. Consistently ringing that bell on behalf of Lamar Jackson. And how could you not? It has been a tremendous year for the King. RG3 chimes back. Fixed it, my Heisman brother. It should be MV3 everywhere. Tired of the lames on national TV trying to pin y'all against each other. So perhaps RG3 taking a little bit of direct aim right here against some of his former colleagues, whether it be at ESPN or any other national network, who have been relentless when it comes to almost downplaying the significance of what Lamar has accomplished this year because of Derrick's presence, which, as we all know and as we've covered thoroughly in recent weeks, is not fair and or accurate. Both of these guys complement one another, but Lamar's presence, the way that defensive coordinators have to account for his abilities, has opened up all kinds of opportunities for Derrick to have a stellar season at age 31. He totaled 138 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns tonight against Cleveland. He generated plus 87 rushing yards over expected. He finishes his first season in Baltimore with a plus 562 RYOE, which again is rushing yards over expected. That's his most in a season since 2018 and the most in the NFL entering the rest of Week 18. That is courtesy of Next Gen Stats, but that only tells part of the picture. We've talked about the Lamar numbers through and through and where he finishes across the board. But I'm telling you right now, that only tells part of the story. He has boosted Derrick Henry. 1,921 rushing yards for the King is the second most of his career. 16 rushing touchdowns is tied for the second most in his career. And 18 total touchdowns is tied for the most in his career. Derrick was a sheer force. And at times, especially in the first half of the season, it kind of felt like the Ravens were holding him back a little bit. And so for him to almost flirt with 2,000 rushing yards at 31 in year one with Baltimore and another year of his contract coming up in 2025 in Baltimore, yeah, you get the sense that we have not seen the last of this duo or maybe the ceiling of what this duo could end up becoming. And my, oh my, do they have two closers? The ultimate closer? Perhaps that's the king. PFF compiled his numbers in the second half and overtime, and that's games this season and where he ranks league-wide. He's second in rushing yards with 1,182. Keep in mind, he finished with 1921. So this is the type of impact that he's had in crunch time. He finished first in yards after contact with 746. He finished tied for first with 8 rushing touchdowns. He finished first in first downs with 55. He finished first in missed tackles forced, no surprise, with 56. And second in yards per carry with 6.6. Again, these are numbers compiled in closer status. When Derrick is at his best, it's when games are on the line. It's when games are won and lost. It's in overtime frames. Like the first game against Cincy when he broke out that big run and pushed the Ravens to victory on the road. It's in the second half when maybe, just maybe, on a night like tonight, when he only had 8 rushing yards in the first half, he goes for, oh, by the way, 130 in the second half. He's hungry for a postseason run. He's hungry for a Super Bowl championship. And the Ravens have been feeding him of late. And that's exactly what they need to continue to do as January postseason arrives. January football is here. January postseason is a week away. Super chat from Josh Hoffman. What's up, Josh? Appreciate the super chat. I'm concerned today. We saw our usual playoff offense in the first half. Didn't run Henry, not just drop balls, but balls popping into the air for possible interceptions. Fourth down fails, LJ and Andrews off their timing. And think about how many defensive pieces for Cleveland were down. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Josh. The early drop by Zay was crucial. The overthrow to Mark that you reference, and just sort of a sloppiness. Tonight, they were penalized 10 times for 83 yards. That's the type of stuff that I'm not saying I'm expecting a Pittsburgh or Los Angeles upset coming up next weekend, but you keep them in games early like that, and you get out of your rhythm and you don't find yourself in January, much like they've done in the past, and all of a sudden it becomes a psychological thing. Not a world you want to live in whatsoever. What up, Mike? Get a gold chain and they won't tell you ish. I do have a gold chain underneath me. St. Christopher. Should have pulled that out, but this thing is skin tight right here. Brandon Humble writes, it don't matter who we play in the wild card. If we're going to reach the promised land, we all want the smoke. Feed the king, and we should be fine. Like I said, though, I get it. Pittsburgh is leaking oil. They've lost 4 straight games. And I'm looking at a statistic up on the screen right now. 4th straight game scoring 17 points or fewer. So they're not putting up points. They're not moving the ball. Their passing attack scares no one. But again, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And stranger things have happened. Joe Jenkins writes, everyone be safe in the snowstorm. I'm from Baltimore, but now live in Bedford, Indiana. We're getting 10 to 18. Wow. So snow and ice by noon on Monday. Go Ravens. Joe, stay safe out there. Same thing in upstate New York. I've been checking in with my mom and whatnot. There is definitely, there's some big storms coming in over the course of the next couple of days. So hopefully you and yours are taking care of yourselves. I appreciate you guys for being here. Over 1,000 of you concurrently watching right now between X or Twitter and YouTube. So thanks for being here. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. And how about the Rook? Putting the icing on the cake of what's been a stellar first season in the NFL. Ravens first rounder back in April out of Clemson, Nate Wiggins, hauled in his first career interception, and it goes down as a pick six. At 21 years old, he became the youngest Raven to record a pick six. And according to ESPN stats and info, the last time a Ravens rookie had one in a game, you got to go back to October 2006 in New Orleans. In that game, two Ravens rookies recorded pick sixes, DeJuan Landry and Ronnie Prude. So very random statistics right there. But that took place tonight. I thought Marlon Humphrey played a hell of a game. He continues to put together an all-pro caliber season, or he did put together an all-pro caliber season. Part of me is so shocked that the regular season's over. I mean, every single year it seems as if the NFL just blinks and all of a sudden you're boat racing to the postseason. And so here we are. I thought Brandon Stevens struggled a little bit tonight. I expect him to be a highly coveted target in terms of offensive game planning moving forward. So I want to see how he responds to that and how his ball skills are. And obviously, ball awareness will be at the top of mind when it comes to Brandon Stevens in the postseason. But the Ravens secondary, all things considered, is in a great place entering the postseason. And you feel good about the fact that Kyle Hamilton went back into the game after what looked to be a little bit of a stinger tonight. You know, the kind of pride you're going to get from Darius Washington. I'm just looking at this highlight right now on ESPN with Nate Wiggins jumping that route in the first half in the opening quarter against Bailey Zappi. I mean, that was just great intuition, great anticipation. And you know he's getting back into the house with that 4.28 speed in a hurry. Another super chat's come in from my guy Tongsley. What's up, Tong? Last year we panicked when the offensive line struggled. Tonight we didn't, so that's an improvement. Have faith. Don't freak out. We finished strong despite a bad first half, and it was an ugly first half. That offensive line was getting worked. Now, Patrick McCary was, not himself tonight, and he didn't play very much, which meant that they went with a rotation at left guard because Patrick was so sick. They went with Voorhees. They gave Ben Cleveland some looks. So there was a little bit of instability there along the line, but that has to be an area, obviously, that the Ravens have to overcome because, week in and week out, once wild card weekend begins, elite defensive fronts they're going to have to find a way to get past elite defensive fronts, or else you're not going to get to where you want to go. And that's oftentimes what we would say in the offseason, right? You're not going to be able to get where you want to go, speaking of that, with no pass rush. Well, guess what? The Ravens are projected to finish second league-wide in total sacks after taking last year's trifecta defensively for the first time in NFL history, right? Points allowed, takeaways, and sacks. They led in every single category. Well, this year, thanks to the likes of Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Oweh, who both have hit the double-digit category, Ravens find themselves in awfully productive company when it comes to pass rush. And when KVN tallied his 12 and a half sacks tonight, that triggered a $250,000 incentive. So number 53 was active. He was getting after it. You could just tell he was money hungry. I loved his post-game press conference as well. He went out of his way to shout out the late Joe D, the late Jacoby Jones. I thought it was really touching. And KVN continues to be this source of veteran savvy and a certain level of relentlessness and experience, of course, on the edge. And he's got this motor as he continues to play with a chip on his shoulder, having been written off just a couple years ago. And since, guys tallied over 30 friggin' sacks with Baltimore. And Eric DeCosta continues to look so dang smart for bringing him in on such a team-friendly deal. I know we're talking outside linebackers here, but while we are on the topic of linebackers, quietly tonight, Roquan Smith became the youngest player in NFL history to reach 1,000 career tackles He finished with a game-high 10, 3 of which were solo. And how about his teammate Odafe Owe? Number 99 for the first time in his career in year 4, hits the double-digit sack number. And, of course, as I tweeted out here, a year after losing Jadeveon Clowney in free agency and all the production that walked out the door with him, Baltimore's pass rush hasn't blinked. It did not blink. And you got to give a ton of credit to the players, of course, first and foremost. But I will always go out of my way to give some credit to Chuck Smith, their outside linebackers coach, a.k.a. Dr. Rush. Dr. Big Man. Michael Pierce, first career interception tonight to put a bow on this one in the fourth quarter. And this place freaking erupted when he took that thing down for a double kneel. Number 58 so often does things that are hard to measure, that you won't necessarily see pop off the page at you in box scores. But MP is a run stuffer specialist. He is a cog. Most importantly, he brings a consistent interior pass rush presence to this team. And I've always liked Mike. He's back with for a second stint in Baltimore now the last couple of years. He was banged up last year. You already know he enjoyed the moment tonight.
Number 6, so there's a long history of turning big guy interceptions and fumbles and all that stuff into memes. So at the risk of ruining a career play like that for myself, it's time to go home. So bus was out of gas. We good. I'm glad I caught it, more importantly. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to curse a lot on TV, but S word. You know what I'm saying? I say, oh, my God, he really threw this football. So, no, I got fairly decent hands. I'm glad I caught it. And like I said, Coach preached smart football. And like I said, I don't want to end up on a meme on Instagram, my wife, and everybody laughing at me. So we did the right thing. We got down and kept it moving.
He's such a likable guy, man. Good for him. That's such an awesome moment. Everybody was losing their minds on the Baltimore sideline. John Harbaugh included, who actually said that that's what they teach in the meeting rooms. Get down, big fella. As much as there was daylight in front of him, get down. Celebrate the accomplishment. And, of course, he's all over everywhere right now.